Yeah, so I thought what we would do for our last segment is, we're all about import gaming,
Yep.
and in the event that people are listening to this and they're not into import gaming already, or they want to do more of it, um, looking ahead to 2024, what do you think are the best systems to import for?
Well, for 2024, to be completely honest, it's the Switch is still top of the line right now because
Yep.
you're getting so many. I I kind of hate to admit it, but it's true. The Switch is catering to everyone right now. It's catering to modern day. It's catering to old school gamers. It's catering to shmup fans. It even caters to people who love the PlayStation Vita. Um, it the Switch right now is the console to collect for right now. Um, now if we're discussing about collecting for a console that was super expensive or you're afraid it's gonna go up in price, I would say now is the time to start collecting for the PlayStation 3. Also,
Yeah.
uh, PlayStation 3 is starting to creep because a lot of games on there are that were there. Okay, let me backtrack and say that differently. There are a lot of games that are on the PlayStation 3 that were hailed as very, very bad games that are gems today. I mean, we spoke about it on on the last episode. We were talking about Lollipop Chainsaw.
Yeah.
Um, Lollipop Chainsaw was a game that no one cared about, that no one looked at. It was, what did you say? It was like $15 at some point.
Yeah, I always saw it and I was just like, not for me, but obviously it should have been for me.
I think that game is definitely up your alley. It's a really neat arcade hack and slash kind of game, but that is one of those games, and I would tell anyone is those are the games you want to keep your eyes on. Is like any game that looks different and not the norm. Those are usually the ones you want to buy up. Like I remember I bought a game that my friends thought I was crazy for buying. It was three of them. I bought, and I think I bought these games on the same day. There was a game called Rhythm Heaven Fever on the Nintendo Wii. I bought that. I bought another game called The Munchables and another game called Tornado Outbreak on the PlayStation 3. Uh, I only bought those games because it looked quirky, and then when I actually played them, they're fantastic. Munchables and Tornado Outbreak is like a cartoonish take on. Have you ever heard of a game called Katamari Damacy?
Oh yeah, classic.
Yeah, that's the game when you basically play as the little prince. You have to roll the ball, make it bigger, and then you start picking up buildings and
Yeah.
whatnot. Think about that same game mechanic, but it's in these two games. These two games look so unique in their own that I don't think they'll ever be remade. They like no one asks for these games. And I think those two games are unique enough to that they're probably going to spike in price. I think when I bought Tornado Outbreak and Munchables, they were $3 a piece. I don't know how much what Tornado Outbreak is now or Munchables, but um I know that you can I know Munchables is on the Wii is on the Nintendo Wii, and the reason why said those the Wii is because I think that's another console that a lot of people just write off that has sleeper gems on it. Um, if I would say,
Yeah,
but
I'm looking at Tornado Outbreak right now. Looks like it's being listed for between $60 and $75.
oh wow,
You got it
it's
for
up there.
3? That's
I got it for
awesome.
$3.
I'll tell you another PlayStation 3 game that I'm kicking myself for not buying. It was a game called like Africa with a K, and it was
Oh
a
yeah,
Safari, and I saw that, and I think it was Japanese exclusive for a while, but then they released a U.S. version of it,
oh yeah.
and oh god, I always put that one off, and I'm seeing that's like $200 now.
Let, another one that is a really good one. I'm trying I'm trying to see if I can spot it on my list because I don't really remember the name. But there was a PlayStation 3 game called it was a PlayStation 3 game that has three games on it. One of them was called Fat Princess, and it
Oh
had another game.
yes.
But there is one game on there that you will never see again, and it's only available on this disc, and I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Tokyo Jungle. I think that's the game. Tokyo Jungle is is one of those PlayStation 3 games that I feel like people should keep their eye on. Wow, this person's selling it for $119. Never
Yeah, I
mind.
remember that. I remember with the
Okay, yeah,
animals.
okay.
Yeah.
So I found it. So it's called The Best of the PlayStation Network, Volume 1. And it has like these four weird games on it. One of them is Fat Princess, but I bought that disc because it had Tokyo Jungle on it. Tokyo Jungle is a game where you basically it's like a game where all human life is extinct and you get to play as animals that have to survive in the wild. So you get to play as like a lion or a rabid dog or something like that. I was like, "Oh, that's unique. I'll just buy that." And but it's so unique, there's no other game like it that I guess that's why it's calling for this price. Like I see $120, $130. Yeah, I knew this thing was gonna be a gem because it has four different games on it, and that game seemed like a game that would never get redone. But I would tell people, I think to 2024, start looking at the Wii. If you're really cheeky, look at the Wii U and PlayStation 3. I would look at there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wondered, when I thought about this question, I wonder what you think of import Vita games
I love
because
it.
when my wife did her trip to Tokyo, and she for my birthday she like live streamed from a game store and had me pick stuff out while she was there. And I she bought some Vita games, and I was like, these are really, really cheap. Now, I don't know, a lot of them are visual novels, a lot of them have that high
Mhm.
language barrier. But if you just want to get into importing, and granted, I'm not sure what these are going for on like eBay, and PlayAsia seems to, have very low stock of certain Vita games. But if you
Yeah.
ever go over there, it seems like that would be a console where you have for like friends over there or something, where you do one of those shipping service things. I forget what they're
Mhm.
called. People are doing that.
The
I
proxy
wonder if,
services.
yeah, the proxy services.
Mhm.
Not I haven't tried that, but I wonder if the Vita is the way to go, because when she was there, they were like $7 or $8, like for
Mhm.
a, a lot of them.
Yeah. So with the Vita, okay, so if you just want to play the games and you're not worrying about scarcity shortages, collect importing Vita games is probably the best way to go. Vita is very, very hard to collect for state-wise.
Yes.
I remember. I'm trying to remember when it actually hit, and what I'm thinking of is when I remember, and I'm speaking from my point of view, is like I remember when I noticed that I was able to buy a PlayStation Vita TV for $30 from GameStop. I was like, I'm gonna buy every single video game I can get my hands on because I have a feeling that this thing is gonna just, disappear and be really hard to find because you can always tell if you go. I don't know how many people go to their GameStops anymore, but you could always tell what was probably going to be really, really hard to find just by looking at GameStop shelves. I noticed that they would always kind of isolate Vita games off into a corner, and they would just kind of sit there forever. Um, in Japan, you can find Vita games everywhere. They're all over the place. The only problem you're going to run into is that the Vita has so many dungeon crawlers and visual novels that you have to read and you have to understand to play. So it's kind of hard to navigate those, those circles. Now, I know that because I love the Vita. The Vita is my favorite handheld of all time. I love that console. There are some games that I can just kind of spot, and I'm like, oh, you can just play that. It's fine. But usually, and this is a piece of advice to you and everybody else that might want to collect import games for the Vita. If the cover looks really, really, really cool, you probably can't play it because you can't read it. I'm just being honest because I noticed that as every time I'm attracted to a really cool cover, it's a visual novel or it's a dungeon crawler, and I'm like, well, I can't read this. Like you're not gonna find too many games like what's a game that's easy to pick up and play, or like Miramasa. Like it has some reading in it, but it's mostly a 2D, vanillaware hack and slash. You're not gonna
Yeah, I
find
mean,
those games.
there's a sweet spot, right? There's, the convergence of affordability
Mhm.
and language. And, when the games, when they're affordable and you could play them, obviously those are the golden ones, and they eventually like shoot up in price. But I find that when things are in the, let's say, $4 to $10 range, like as far
Mhm.
as importing, like I'll take a chance. And one of the things, I like the weird stuff. I think you're like this too. Like,
Yep.
hey, we'll try it out. We'll see how far we can get. Back when Saturn was still affordable, I remember I picked up a game called The Combini, which
Mhm.
is basically a Japanese convenience store simulation
Oh yeah,
game.
you told me about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's one of the things. Like, if you want to, stream some really weird stuff, like that would be a go-to. It's like, where do I put the fax machine so that we have optimal foot traffic and people will send their faxes, and you increase the profitability of your store. And it's like running a Lawson's or whatever, one of those stores in Japan. And I felt like, okay, there is a language barrier. I never really got deep into this game, but I don't mind buying it for $6.
Yeah.
And I think the Vita is certainly in that price range now. But you're right, a lot of visual novels.
Yeah. There's a lot of visual novels, there's a lot of RPGs that you have to read and you can't enjoy the story. Um but I think that it's not that I think the Vita was that kind of console. It was a console that catered to the JRPG visual novel crowd, and there's an abundance of it. Collecting Japanese import Vita games, especially if you want to play and enjoy them, it's really hard to collect for. Now, if you're like a collector because oh, I want to collect this version of that game because I have the English version, then I would probably be more inclined to be like, yeah, you can just go ahead and grab that. But it's really hard to collect for the Vita in Japan. But I still do it from time to time. I will not lie. I'm actually on one of my favorite websites, and I'm looking at Vita games right now, and I just spotted like 3 games I know I can't read, but I need those games.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you can go down like the eBay rabbit hole, and you can find things that I want to give it a shot. Um, a couple of ones that I think worked out for me was the Persona Dancing All Night games.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
the
they
rhythm
are
game.
very expensive,
Are they?
For the US versions. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So for the so I just picked up the Japanese versions, and like, yeah, it's a rhythm game, and there is a fair bit of reading, but you can kind of skip through that and you could play the actual game.
Hmm.
Another one that I picked up recently that was more on the expensive, like it was more than $10, was that Dead or Alive beach volleyball game for the Vita.
It's a good one. Yep.
And I've never played it, and I know there was like some kind of controversy about it when it came out, but I was like, I bet you I could probably play that.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, that's That's a pretty simple game too. That's one of those games that I'm talking about where you can just kind of pick it up, not worry about the story, and you can just play through it. But yeah, Vita games in Japan are super cheap. I've already got 6 games in my cart already, and it's only about $40.
Yeah.
It's
Well, see, it's tempting. It's tempting. you you know, I might be doing the same thing tonight. And I think the other thing that we should say to people too is like, import, and you touched on this in one of your videos recently. Like, life's getting expensive. Inflation is bearing down on us. But you don't always have to import like the super limited edition stuff, and like Amazon Japan. You're paying very high shipping fees, stuff like that. I think import gaming is also mentality, and with Steam today really releasing a lot of niche titles that previously would have been imports, I
Mhm.
think you can kind of get into the scene still pretty cheaply if you go that route. And then, of course, if you're gonna emulate, and you're gonna go to emulate a lot of this Japanese stuff that never came out here, I consider that import gaming as well in a way. Like
Yeah,
you're appreciating the genre, you're appreciating the art form, even if you're not paying top dollar to bring that stuff into the United States.
yeah, I definitely agree. I would definitely tell anyone that, before you start importing uh any game, especially on the Vita, I would definitely tell anyone do their due diligence of searching if this is going to be something that they want to play, because a lot of the times it trying to send something back is a hassle. So just work through that.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean I've had some stinkers, games that I was just, why did I buy this? Like back in the when I was buying for the Saturn, those like horse racing games, like, oh, there's so many of these, let me try one. And I'm like, oh yeah, this sucks. And there's a huge language barrier. Like theoretically, like a horse breeding RPG should be fun, but it didn't work out in
Yeah.
practice. But yeah, I mean the barrier to entry is not as high as we talked about this last episode. Like when you would go to the back of an electronic gaming monthly, and you would see those like import companies, and it was so super expensive. Like you can get into
Mhm.
it now, but your point is well taken. Research what you're buying, and make sure it's something that you will enjoy.
Yeah, because I can't even tell you how many times I've failed at importing in the beginning, and I ended up with a bunch of just games where I'm just like, why? Like exactly what you said, why? So do the research first. But
Definitely.
I did give you guys a trick. If the cover looks way too cool, most of the time, you probably can't read anything in it.